Hello, we're just going to take a quick trawl through the archives of 2022 just to see where I went and what we got up to. Not all of it did make it to the WolfiesWheels channel. There were just places I went to which were car related. So grab a cup of tea, sit down for the next 10-15 minutes maybe and come on a little trip of nostalgia with me. And at the end of it we'll look forward to see what we're going to do in 2023. Okay, just before we get into the film itself, I just want to say a huge thanks to everybody who's taken the trouble to watch the films now over the last year and so, and indeed to the 500 plus special subscribers who have also decided to subscribe to the channel. Currently the stats that we're seeing around about 3,200 views of the films per month. And 295 to 300 hours of stuff watched every month. But very interestingly, only 96% of the audience are actually subscribers. So I kind of just a bit baffled as to why people watch but don't think to subscribe. Maybe, I don't know, it's one of those things. You don't have to subscribe to watch, but obviously it just makes the films a lot easier to find. Anyway, thank you so much for all your support over the past 12 months. And hopefully we can keep going through 2023 and maybe let's see if we can get it up to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2023. Well, there's no better place to start than January. And in January went over to Skipton with the Fiat Owners Club of Yorkshire, Fiat Owners Group. Look them up on Facebook if you've got a Fiat. Really good group to be in, friendly people, some interesting cars, not all Fiats. Then we went away with the 2CV to the Orcan Cafe at Home First, the 2CV group, and later in the month over to Harewood, the Harewood Drivers Club, where another bigger Bath turnout, and then I went down to Sharnbrook in Bedfordshire, some amazing puntos, and Dave Quinn's race car, which is converted for the road use. A really interesting car. Steph AB has reviewed it on his channel if you're interested in looking at that one. Oh, the car was filthy by the time we got home. Never seen it quite as bad, but of course it cleaned up fine. And that was January. And at the beginning of February, the weather was pretty bad up our way for the UK. I appreciate you may be living elsewhere in the country, in the world, and snow like this is nothing. But it did kind of put a bit of a stall on things. But towards the end of the month, I was able to get out in the car and went on a fairly spirited convoy run with the Bath Owners Club of Yorkshire. Again, back up to Harewood for the Harewood Drivers Club meeting, and again the Baths kind of dominated the day. But in reality, that was pretty much February. Not much went on. Weather had of course improved a bit by March and was able to get out a bit more in, for example, the 2CV. Fantastic days, little local drive round, roof down. It really did seem to start blowing the old cobwebs away. I love that car. It's an amazing car. And then I went down to the NEC where the 2CV GB had a Ukraine-themed stand. Found an interesting little mini camper van. And then went over to the motorist at Sherborne in Elmet. Fiats all over the place. The amazing cars like this Lancia here that you're looking at, and then sort of sublime to the ridiculous with this Fiat Topolino, complete with a key in the back of it to wind it up. It was interesting. And end of the month, out in the motorhome for the first time of the year, over to Sutton-on-Sea in the Lincolnshire area. And yeah, these are beach huts, and if you look at the roof of them, they're actually inverted Nissan hut roofs, which they used after the war to make the beach huts with, and they're now actually listed, and if you want to put a beach hut in certain areas on that particular resort, that's what you need to do. Just thought it was interesting just to chuck it in. In April is kind of where the season really started kicking off for us. I went down to the Goodwood members meeting in the motorhome and actually put together a film about solo camping in the motorhome, which is available on the channel. That was an interesting weekend and an interesting film I thought to do. Then we went off to the 2CV GB rally in the motorhome with Raymond the 2CV down in St Ives in Cambridgeshire. It was a fantastic weekend, Easter weekend, made all the better by some absolutely amazing weather. And while we were there, we took ourselves off to Lowestoft for a few days. Amazing sunsets that were there. Because one of the things that's on my bucket list is to visit the north, south, east, west, most extreme cardinal points on the UK mainland. And I've now got Lowestoft ticked off as the easterly one. So then it was Drive It Day, and I went with some Citroen friends over to the Lakeland Motor Museum. A really nice drive out on some routes I've never been on before, so thanks to Ben Cowell and the group for organising that day. Unfortunately, Raymond started making a strange grinding noise, which later found was the kingpin was quite worn, and it actually dropped down and was rubbing on the end of sort of the drive shaft, and that needs to be fixed. So that happened a little bit later in the year, but we'll come on to that one. May kicked off with a trip to the sports cars in the park in North Yorkshire. There's a film on that, as you can see from the little picture here. We then went camping with the greyhounds and ended that trip with a trip to Liverpool. Now, Liverpool is a really great place. If you've never been, I was put off for years by press coverage of the place, but what an amazing place. Absolutely recommend going there. And it's not all about the Beatles, all sorts of street art. Then I got Raymond's kingpin fixed and the single spoke steering wheel put on by people over at Citroen, Alan Rogers, so big thumbs up to Alan for sorting that one out for me. And ended the month with a family trip up to Tan Hill in the Tesla. Now the picture that you're looking at here, look at what people are wearing, that was the end of May, that was in fact the May bank holiday. It was not very good weather. And now we're into June, and I started the month by doing an oil change on the 2CV and took the wings off, and I thought I was a real 2CVist now, and I'd planned to make a film, but you know, getting those wings back on was such a kerfuffle. God, what an awful job. I really don't know how to do it. It took me forever to get it done, so I kind of gave up, lost patience, didn't do the film, but did the oil change, because we were off with the motor home and the 2CV down to Newark for the Retro Festival. People were camping in all sorts of things. Raymond got himself lined up with the cars, and there was all sorts of fancy machinery there, ranging from army stuff to almost steampunk type of vehicles. But again, what a great thing to do. And actually we're going down next year, so say at the end of the film, to the Newbury one as opposed to the Newark one, because Newark isn't actually on in 2023. And then we ended the month by doing a sort of a trip of Wales, ending up in Tenby, and I think probably Tenby, to be fair, was probably my favourite spot in Wales of that tour, where we covered 500 miles in about 10 days. July was a really packed month for car things. Started off by going to the Auto Italia Day up at Castle Raby, and that was a really good day. Went in the Bath. It wasn't all about a bath, there's all sorts of Italian stuff there. I didn't do a film of it. Some very rare Punto and Strada cabriolets. Really nice cars. Scenery, marvellous. It's a good family day out. Well recommend it for 2023 should anybody want somewhere to go. The following day I went down to Findon in Northamptonshire for the annual Bath gathering. I was reunited with OTW, my very first at Bath, and it was so good to see that car again and chat to the owner. There is a small film on the channel about that, and I got to park up with another 695 Anniversario, but this time a blue one. And at the end of the month, it was time for the concours de l'ordinaire at the Hegarty Festival of the Unexceptional, which this year was won by this lovely red Astra that you can see here. August, there wasn't so much car stuff going on. We actually went up to southwest Scotland, took the Abarth and the Tesla, stayed in some really nice self-catering accommodation called Ninian's Landing on the Isle of Whithorn. So if you fancy a nice break to southwest Scotland, well recommend the place. I mean, this was the view of the sunset out of the window. I mean, you know, as I say, Ninian's Landing, Harbour Row, Isle of Whithorn. But we did end the month by going to another event at the Motorist at Sherburn and Elmet, where there were loads of Italian cars, loads of Abarths, and this is basically the Fiat owners group of Yorkshire. As I look them up on Facebook. This is a picture of the cars. So after a fairly quiet August on the car front, things did pick up a bit more in September. Started off with a local car show, the Otley Vehicle Extravaganza, where Raymond was on show. We all went down, took Mum, Anne, nice picnics, really good day out, little local event, much better supported than I kind of anticipated. There's no film on it, but it was a great day out. And then it was off to the Goodwood Revival in the motorhome again. Again, didn't do much in terms of filming there, there's no film put out. Aeroplanes, all sorts of things there. It's not just about the cars, it's a really, really good thing to do. And I'd well recommend it to anybody. And then I ended the month by pressing Raymond into wedding duties for a friend of a friend. And that was a really, really good day, was that. And then into October, and realising that I'd had the Abarth for 2 years, which for me is quite a long time to keep the car. I did a 2-year review on it, and kind of decided at a similar sort of time that probably time to move the car on. I'd always fancied an Octavia VRS. In fact, I nearly bought one in 2019. Bought a Skoda Superb instead. But as I walked into our local dealer, this particular car was sat in the showroom as a cancelled order. I got a great deal, part exchanging the Abarth, and before I knew it, the deal was done, and the car was being driven out of the showroom. A film on this will obviously follow in 2023, but I wanted to get some miles under the belt first so I could form a more objective opinion as opposed to something based on the initial new car euphoria that everyone sort of gets. But certainly the early indications in the first 1,000 miles are it's a really nice car, although it's certainly no Abarth. And I certainly miss the social scene of that Abarth. I got a lot out of that in the last couple of years. And it was eventually tucked up, of course, in the garage with Raymond, the 2CV. Well, this month kicked off taking the new Skoda down to the NEC for the classic car show. Some really good cars there. I didn't do a film. A lot of people have already done films on that. I didn't see a lot of point. But, you know, nice 924. Very interested in the old 924s because, as you can see from the film here, this is me back in 1993 with my 924, which I actually ended up selling and buying a 1948 Daimler DB18 saloon instead. Shortly after I sold the 924, it caught fire. But at that show, you can get all sorts of things. You can buy yourself a barn find Austin 7, or you can buy yourself an absolutely immaculate, nice V8 Vantage Roadster, very unusual trim. Very, very nice car, that. I was just glad I'd already bought the Skoda, because if not I might have been tempted. And I picked up a brochure at the Auto Jumble, which I've been looking for some time. So all in all, it was a pretty successful trip down there. Later in the month I went over to the Motorist for the Cars from the Iron Curtain day. It was pretty disappointing. There were a couple of Wartburgs there. There was my Skoda, another Skoda, and believe it or not, a random green 2CV, which was nice to see. I think the guys in our local 2CV group, Yorkshire 2CV Owners Group, but that was very nice anyway. And then towards the end of the month, we actually picked up another Tesla. This time it's a Model Y. We weren't planning to change the Model 3, we really like the Model 3, but we got such a storming offer on part exchange it was rude to refuse it. So we've now changed the Model 3 for this blue Model Y with the white interior. And again, a film will follow on that in 2023. And again, I don't want to do anything too soon because initial impressions are always not necessarily the ones that you want to be reporting on, but initial impressions are definitely good. So December, pretty cold here in the UK. I got out for a really nice drive around just the local area in the 2CV. It was a really crisp day, you know, just a lot of fun. But oddly enough, I got home after this little journey out, and Raymond wouldn't start. It had completely goosed the battery, so I've had to put a new battery on Raymond. I didn't bother filming that because it's absolutely so straightforward. You wouldn't believe it, but you know, that was just that. And then we ended the year just as we started it, really, 28th of December, with the Fiat Group for the fish and chip lunch over at Skipton, and with some of the cows. So that was 2022. We've got a few things lined up for 2023. Starting off next week, going up to Tan Hill in the 2CV with 30 or 40 other 2CVs for a thing called Raid Tan Hill. It's been going for years. Great film of it on the Hubnut channel. If you haven't watched it, that's the event we're off on. All sorts of other things lined up through the year, various car shows, bits away in the motorhome, and of course there'll be a film on the Octavia VRS and the Model Y. They're coming up too. But you know, if there's anything you want to see more of or less of, can you just drop it in the comments below, and I'll see what I can do for you. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your support over the past year. It's been astounding, and I look forward to seeing you in another episode of our Wolfies Wheels. Bye bye.